So today I'd like to talk about the second commandment as a gift from God. I'm going to go ahead and read it here, Exodus chapter 20, verses 4 all the way down to verse 6. You shall not make for yourself an idol, any form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them to worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. So the reason I'm going to talk about this as a gift isn't because I want to water down the fact that God's perfectly right in requiring us to follow his law, or because I want to water down the fact that we're obligated to follow his law. But I do want to talk about the 10 Commandments as gifts, because sometimes I think we have a view of God's law that it's this like horrible, tyrannical thing, when actually, like in Psalm 19, David talks about the law as a source of light, as a refreshment, as honey, as a source of wisdom. And so I want us to walk away from looking at the 10 Commandments and appreciate how it's good and it's a gift from God. And this commandment is to not make idols. And there's two aspects to that. The number one aspect is we don't make like statues of God and use those in our worship. And that is because God is the uncreated God. So for us to, make a created image and then, worship that image as a representation of God, that would just be irreverent. God is so majestic and so glorious and so transcendent that no image can do him justice. And secondly, we don't put other things in the place of God. We don't worship creatures. We don't worship careers. We don't worship things that are less than God. We only worship God. And that is because God wants to give us the gift of his presence. In Leviticus 26, verses 11 to 12, God's going to say this: I will put my dwelling place among you, and I will not abhor you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you will be my people. So by focusing on and worshiping God rather than an idol, we receive the gift of the presence of God. We receive the gift of the majesty and the glory of God. But when we trade in the uncreated, glorious God for something that's created or less than God, we get gypped from his presence. We lose out on his glory. We lose out on his majesty. And so God wants you to experience his presence. And the second commandment is a gift. By following that commandment of not worshiping idols, you get to experience the presence and the glory and the majesty of God. So look at this commandment as a gift of God, of his presence to you.